Hello, this is Dillio coming to you live, representing DillioT2K.com. How you guys doing out there? And in this video, we're going to talk about how to make a funk beat or a funky beat in FL Studio. And the backdrop for this video will feature the song Slide By Me by myself that I wrote and produced, and I produced on this platform right here, which is FL Studio. And so in this video, what we're going to do, we're going to look at some of the separate drum sounds and some of the different plugins that I used and some of the mindsets that I had to kind of set the song up. So let's look at some of the drum sounds and let's see what I got here. So I'm going to just solo out so you can hear them. And I'm just going to, as you can see, a lot of the sounds are very canned, almost sound kind of cheesy. But that's the thing, it's like there's not a lot to them and it's very dry. And I produce a lot of tracks like this on purpose because what I want to do is I want to add reverb in the platform that I like to mix my songs in, which is Studio One 3. So when I do that, I like to keep my sounds very simple. So let's break it down and let's hear just the drum beats come together so you can hear how that runs. And I'll tell you a little bit more about the theory behind that. So as you can see, there's a lot of sounds that sounds like the era of the 80s, 90s sounds. And that's one of the things that I go for when I'm trying to produce funk music or produce a music that's not quite today. You have to use kind of like the old school sounds to create that vibe, because if you use like new school sounds to create an old school nostalgic sound, to me it doesn't come quite well together. So big clap sounds, you know, big open, you know, sampled sounds and stuff like that, something that really allows it to come together. And when you combine them together, you get more sounds. So that's another tip that I could say for making a funk track in FL Studio, is just combining samples. Here's one clap by itself. And as you see for this song, I layered a lot of stuff on this track to come together. So you got a lot of sounds mixed together that makes this big smashing snare sound. And a lot of funk music back in the day from the 70s and forward had really big live clap, big room sounding clap sounds. So when you mix different samples together, you can get basically that same sound simulated in this environment right here. And again, so I used a DMX clap. Now a DMX is an old drum machine from back in the day. And so that's kind of the thing, is I wanted that nostalgic sound for this song. I didn't want it to sound new. I wanted it to sound old school. So let's get to some of the musical stuff about this track that I produced in this platform as far as making a funky beat in FL Studio. In FL Studio, I used the Juno plugin, which is this big old thing right here. And I need to see if I can shrink that down. But this is part of the Rolling Cloud. And the thing is about the Rolling Cloud is that it features a lot of classic synthesizers from back in the day. And when you want to produce tracks, one of the things that I like to do is to use the sounds and use the synthesizers that they use. And that's one of the advantages of having Rolling Cloud, is that you get to use the synthesizers that emulate the plugins that were used back in the day in that time. So we're going to pull up a pattern and we're going to listen to some of these sounds here. And so you can see, and I actually use other Roland products to fulfill more of the sounds back when we go to Studio One 3. So here's some synthesizer sounds from that Juno. Notice how it doesn't sound like a whole lot's going on. It sounds kind of cheesy, but when you mix it with other sounds, you get you get kind of a bit different vibe from the whole thing. So if I go through some more of the patterns, you can see that I held this chord down right here. And let's look at that sound real quick. Basically, what I have is a little bit of chorus, a little bit of sawtooth, and if I take the chorus off, you're going to hear a different sound. Notice how it sounds kind of dry. But adding that chorus effect, and the Juno was popularly known for that sound of that chorus, so adding that kind of helps to the flavor and really brings that flavor in home. And I also use another Juno 106 plugin for the bass sound. And that's, again, that falls back into my theory of using sounds from that era and from that time to simulate that vibe, to simulate that sound, to simulate the experience, and to kind of create that nostalgic effect, which is what I'm going for. And you know, all together, like if I circle down to this one and solo this, you can hear. And now we have kind of a mute guitar thing going on there. And it actually went back to this Rolling Cloud and used the JV-1080. The JV-1080 came out, I believe, the mid 90s or late 90s, stuff like that. And again, using sounds from that time frame. So 9 times out of 10, it's easier for me to grab a module like this and go straight to the sounds that was used kind of back in the day to create that nostalgic sound, than to go and grab Atmosphere. And it will have some nostalgic sounds on there, but you kind of have to dig for them. Whereas this module doesn't have too many things. And sometimes when you're producing music, you want it to have that sound module sound. You want it to have that keyboard sound. I don't want to produce funk tracks or pop tracks sometimes and use these really realistic sounding film scoring streams from a large 10 gigabyte library from Contact. You know, I want to use something a little bit more not so extravagant that adds more to the whole picture than it stills the show. So you can see that I brought that there. More samples in there laid in. And here's a special little secret tip right here. So as you can see, if we zoom in, and I'll try and zoom in, and I'll make sure the grid is on the right step, we can see that these samples aren't triggered perfectly on time. This line right here represents, you know, a quarter note. And notice how it comes a little earlier. And that's a secret trick right there, because when you make sounds come in a little bit off time, it adds to a more realistic effect, because let's face it, people don't always clap perfectly on time. So when you add those clap sounds with these perfectly timed drum machine clap sounds, we get kind of a bigger sound together like this. And again, we mix some kick drums, 4/4. And that's the kind of thing when you're making funk music, is that it doesn't take a lot to make it. You want something to hit on that floor on the one, and a big snare wash on the second note, with a little bit of hats going in between right there. And I actually add more drum machine sounds in Studio 1.3 from hardware drum machines. So that's going to be a very interesting thing that we'll check out in a later episode of this Making the Magic Box video series. So putting it all together, grabbing the drum sounds, grabbing the beat. I mean, you guys probably already know how to click things into the tracks. I don't think you guys need to know that. But that's how you pretty much start off with a funk track with FL Studio. And then if I go to the song mode and pull it up there, as you can see, I've taken different patterns and linked them together to create more. So now we have this. Which you know, I think has a very kind of old school funk sound, new jack kind of, not necessarily new jack. I wouldn't call this new jack, but I would call this like modern funk, not an earlier funk, because earlier funk music was all mostly live played instruments. So a mixture of that with the old and the new is what I was going for with this track. So this pretty much is how I create a funk track. I'll use, to break it down, I'll use old school sounds, I'll use old school synthesizer modules, and I'll use old school analog synthesizers to really bring in that sound to create a nostalgic feel, if that's the direction that you want to go in your music production. So I think it's really exciting to have a lot of tools that was not available to me, or, you know, let's face it, so you got a Juno 106 here, and we have, you know, a synthesizer like this would cost, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars to buy, but now with the Rolling Cloud, it's much more affordable. And you know, it just, I get a kick out of using stuff that was used back in the day, so that I can kind of wear the shoes that people in the past have worn making the music that they make. So that's pretty much how I make a funk track on FL Studio. There's going to be more on that, but I definitely wanted to start here and show how this song was put together. And you know, in closing, you know, you make a beat, you can start off making a funk beat right here with just one pattern. And FL Studio definitely has difference between patterns and song mode. So when you go to song mode, take those patterns out, stretch them out over this amount of time, and then you can check the length of your track right there. So that's pretty much what will summarize how to make a funk track in this video. We're going to talk about more about exporting a track like this to Studio One 3, and that'll be available for the next episode. So if you like this video, please subscribe, like the comments, all that good stuff. Leave me comments of stuff you want to see, tutorials you want to see as we go through a multi-episodic series of this thing called Making the Magic Box. So this is how to make a funk beat, and what I'm doing is I'm taking conceptual items and finding out practical ways to achieve certain goals via the material that I've worked on. So I hope you guys like this video. This is episode 1, how to make a funk beat, out of the Making Magic Box video series. Y'all stay tuned for more. All right, peace. Hey, what's up? Before you go, make sure you hit up DillioT2K.com and check out Khemikals, my preset library for Massive. There's over 100 sounds like I got on there, and also a second library of sounds right there that you can use for trap, pop music, EDM, trap soul, funk, old school R&B. All of that's on there. Make sure you check it out, and also add my album to your playlist, your Spotify playlist, whatever playlist you got. Magic Box by Dillio. Check that out. All the links are in the description below. I'll see you guys later. Peace.